Hello, my name is Leslie DeBow. I'm the Associate Director for Educational Gaming Solutions at the Veterans Health Administration. I actually work for the Employee Education Systems Innovations Directorate. We use commercial game technology to develop engaging and immersive educational products. Today I'll talk about how we combined a relatively new healthcare technology with a not so new game technology, the massively multiplayer online game. I'll build up to a discussion of the tele-ICU game, but first I'd like to introduce you to the terminology and make sure that you're familiar with the technology being trained. I'll talk about how MMOs, or massively multiplayer online games, are used in the commercial world and make sure you understand how medical centers employ tele-ICUs. Then we'll transition to how we blend the two technologies into a unique learning product that is flexible, mobile, and provides opportunities for team building and decision making in a healthcare situation. The military's been using multiple players games for 20 years or more in their simulations and with commercial games. They even have simulations in games or simulators in games that allow medics to be included in combat scenarios and make their contribution to the fight. This is a fairly new opportunity for healthcare and comes from the commercial market, as I said, with a much different purpose. First off, what is a multiplayer game or massively multiplayer online game? We're really talking about a multiplayer game rather than the massively multiplayer online game you see here in World of Warcraft. A multiplayer online game, or MMO or MMOG, is an online game capable of supporting large numbers, hence the word massive, of players in the same world or virtual environment. There are several commercial versions of multiplayer games and just multiplayer environments. World of Warcraft is one. EVE Online is another. And there are several fantasy multiplayer games for all ages and also serious games in virtual worlds. Most of you have probably heard of one or more of the massively multiplayer online games that I talked about before, but have probably not considered the use of MMOGs for serious purposes or training. But there are lots of instances of serious games that use the virtual environment in order to train multifunctional teams, improve communications between team members, inform and make shared decision making, orient people to the technology and make them familiar with it, a new technology, and to share best practices and emerging practices. There are several MMO serious games. I've listed several on the side of the slide. Woodman is one where players work together to control the lumber in their virtual world and support their community against another community trying to do the same thing and competing for resources. Escape from Wilson Island is another where players work together and communicate to successfully survive and escape the island. And now in 2016, a serious purpose for a virtual world. We're using a virtual world to train tele-ICU players to work together across geography in a shared environment. Now for some background, the tele-ICU, many of you probably know, it's a type of telemedicine practice. It's not new. It provides a second set of eyes for a centrally or remotely based critical care team networked with bedside ICU team, and they use state-of-the-art audiovisual communication and computer systems to provide that second set of eyes on a large number of patients so they can do more with less. Now an introduction to the tele-ICU game, which is a massively multiplayer game. However, we really only put the same number of people who conduct tele-ICU work into the game. So 4 or 5 up to 7 is the most players we've ever had in a game. It is a multiplayer game. Each player is sitting at a computer terminal and is manning an avatar in the game. We don't use any kind of artificial intelligence, with the exception of the patient, who has very scripted animations and responses. There is a facilitator required to assist in moving the actions along and also help with the debrief or after action report. We replicate the command center and the patient room just like it is in real life. It's fairly photorealistic. And we use multiple patient scenarios with differing underlying physiology in our artificial intelligence or patients.
The tele-ICU game orients and trains healthcare providers in the effective use of the new tele-ICU technology using a shareable environment that will train multiple players at different locations in real time. This simulation enables tele-ICU users to experientially hone their team communication and decision-making skills in an immersive virtual environment that uses the same technology as the VHA Virtual Medical Center. Upon completion of each session, a facilitator can review the exercise with participants, giving a step-by-step from different perspectives throughout the tele-ICU center.
The Veterans Health Administration has another use of this particular technology in the virtual medical center. It is a persistent environment that's available to veterans 24/7. It provides a one-stop shop for, ultimately, will be all things VA. You can do scheduling of appointments. We'll ultimately be able to do telemedicine on demand. There is an education and reference library in the current version. There's the ability to do social networking within the environment. You can have meetings and conferences. You can visit the pharmacy lab and check on the status of your prescriptions, and many other things that are going to be available in this one-stop shop that will be a persistent virtual environment. There aren't a great many examples of the use of serious MMOs for healthcare. However, there are many other examples of multiplayer games or massively multiplayer online games for other serious purposes. For instance, the America's Army game is a real first-person, massively multiplayer online game you play with your friends that was used by the Army, or is used by the Army, for recruiting. So they attract potential recruit candidates by the game and then educate them using the game and comics and other educational information on the America's Army site. Another MMO that's been around for a while is Second Life. Second Life is a persistent world with its own in-world currency and economics. You have every action you take, every fiscal action you take within world, you have to use their currency. It's called Linder dollars. And in the world, you can buy virtual real estate and develop your own village, city, hotel, university. And several universities have built their own islands. I believe Harvard University built a university, and several others have presences in the world. They use their virtual real estate and real property for distance learning and conferences and meetings and to contain educational materials that visitors can access. The Air Force actually built an island in Second Life and used it for a couple of different in-world conferences. Another example of a multiplayer game, though it is only 2-player, is Elections, Your Adventure in Politics. And it's targeted at the high school student for political science or civics classes. In the game, you manage your own virtual candidate who is running for president from announcement to election. You make the decisions for your candidate that will either get him elected or make him lose. It conveys knowledge on how the country runs its electoral college and other aspects of elections. I thought that was a fairly timely game, so I included it today. The next example of a serious MMO is called Global Warming Interactive. It is a true multiplayer game, again focused at high school student education, and it explores the relationship of climate change to economic, political, and science policy decisions. So in the game, you, with other players, will role play different economic, political, and science personnel, and your decisions affect the system dynamics in the game and thus global economies and global warming. Though there aren't many examples, as I said, of MMOs for healthcare, I expect there will be in future. Imagine training new doctors and nurses using a virtual world so they can access it from anywhere at any time, and providing for perhaps a storehouse of patient scenarios that could be uploaded from anywhere by anyone, validated, of course, by some sort of accreditation process, and available to anyone for sharing information and sharing protocols and expanding the healthcare education for those in less developed countries or even here in the rural United States. The VHA's Virtual Medical Center is a start. We've added games for providers and nurses in world, developed clinics, for example, for the care of the diabetic patient, telemedicine, mental health, and other challenging topics. The MMO also includes some social activities, and I see a vision of the use of persistent worlds for the continuum of care for patients and for the education of doctors and other allied health professionals. Though I am not an MMOG player, I do have a presence in several different MMOs, so I thought just for fun I'd share what my avatars look like. On the top left is Leslie in the Virtual Medical Center. Top right is Leslie as she would like to look and as she does look in Second Life. There's a lot of anonymity you gain from playing in virtual worlds. Bottom left is Leslie in Farmville. And bottom right is Leslie in real life. Thanks for listening.